In this chapter, what I'm going to do is walk you through how to set up a cichlid aquarium. Now, the first thing you want to do is select yourself an aquarium as big as possible. Now, so many times people will buy an aquarium from the store and it either wasn't quite what they were after or it doesn't look quite as big once it settles into the home. So make sure you buy the tank as big as possible. Also, try to have your filtration as big as possible, because in general, larger filters are more versatile and they can handle a larger bio load, which is the amount of stock in the aquarium. Now, when buying the aquarium, try and make the aquarium as long and as wide as possible to increase the surface area of the water. Try not to purchase tall, thin aquariums with small surface area, because the amount of surface area the aquarium will have directly relates to the amount of fish you can have in the aquarium. So large filters and large aquariums generally reach a lot less regret. Though the standard models of aquarium sizes and colours tend to be cheaper, don't forget that an aquarium is a long-term investment. So don't be afraid to get a custom aquarium. Though they're a little bit more expensive, it's really important to get something that suits your home style and purpose. Now watch as I show you step by step how to set up varying different types of cichlid aquariums, utilising different types of filtration and different size tanks. I'm going to start with this custom 5-foot African cichlid tank, which is going to be run with a Majestic filter. Make sure you put a lot of thought into the positioning of your aquarium. You want to try and keep it away from any major thoroughfares, like hallways are not the best idea, away from slamming doors, and definitely direct sunlight. Try to keep the aquarium away from direct sunlight, because that's going to encourage algae problems and possibly temperature problems. A corner like this is absolutely perfect. Make sure under any aquarium that you always have polystyrofoam. Now what this does is take up any irregularities in your stand. No matter how flat you think your stand is, make sure you have the polystyrofoam. Now this filter is run off an overflow principle. So what happens is you've got the filter down the bottom, it blows water up via a pump into the top of the aquarium, which overflows the aquarium via a hole, which returns the water down into the filter again. Now there's various different ways to take the water from the aquarium down into the sump. There are overflow chambers that people make in the corner of the aquarium. I choose not to use them because they're large and bulky and very visible in the aquarium. I think that the least obvious is just simply a hole in the back of the aquarium. If you want the water level relatively low, you'll put the hole down lower, remembering that if you're pumping a lot of water up, you'll need to make sure that this hole is low enough to accept the amount of water which is outputted by the pump. Now what we're going to talk about is the filtration for this 5-foot cichlid aquarium. What we've selected is the Majestic system, which is a filter that I designed. I've tried basically all the different types of filters that are on the market. Most of them have their merits. What I aim to do while inventing this type of filter is to make it as easy as possible to clean, because the way this filter works is this is your inlet chamber, so the water comes from your aquarium through piping into this first chamber. In this first chamber we place some mechanical filter material. This pre-filter material, typically air conditioning wool or aquarium filter wool, will just be placed into this chamber. It's important that the wool covers the whole surface of this chamber, otherwise the water will just take the easy route and bypass the wool. Underneath the wool is this Kamahata mesh, which is really just providing support for the wool. It's really important that this Kamahata mesh does not get really dirty. You can take it out and just hose it, because we're not valuing any bacterial growth that will occur on this anyway. As soon as the wool gets a bit dirty, at least weekly, take the wool out and throw it away. How effective this chamber is governed by how clean this chamber is. If you collect a whole lot of detritus on this wool and you circle the volume of water past this wool several times an hour, you'll actually be lowering the water quality if it's just chocked up with detritus. It will also clog and cause the water to start increasing its pressure, which will overflow the water into this next chamber. In saying that, it's also very important, whoever makes you your filter, that there's a gap between this first divider and the top of the tank. Otherwise, when this gets dirty, it'll actually overflow out, not overflow into the next chamber. So what happens next is the water goes down through the pre-filter material, which takes any heavy detritus out of the water. It then passes down underneath this chamber. This area here is used as what's called a settling chamber, because as the water comes back up to the top again, any heavy bits of detritus which have made it through this first pre-filter will settle in the bottom here. It's very easy to service this area by just getting a fine net and scooping out any detritus that builds up here. The water then travels up and over where we're about to place a second pre-filter material and the rest of our biological material. This biological material will be breaking down the organics in the water using bacteria, then returning the water to the main water sump. Now I'm just going to show you how to make up the biological chamber. I've just got a couple of stilts on the bottom, which are just 40mm PVC pipe, and they're just going to be holding up this grid. All the grid is doing is offering a bit of support for the Kamahata mesh, and all the Kamahata mesh is doing is offering a base to put the biological material on, so the biological material doesn't fall through the grate. Once again, it's important to make sure that this Kamahata mesh does not get too dirty, because if it gets clogged up, once again it will reduce the efficiency of the filter. There's various different filter materials that you can use in this biological chamber. So what we're doing is we're going to put a material in here. The material is going to grow bacteria, and the bacteria is going to break down the waste from your fish. I've found the most effective filter material on the market to be matrix, because it's got a particular porosity which allows the formation of varying different types of bacteria. On the outside of this medium has nitrifying bacteria, then anoxic and anaerobic bacteria within the porous structure of this medium. Now what that does is, instead of just breaking high-level waste via nitrifying bacteria into low-level waste, and the low-level waste remaining in the aquarium, the anaerobic bacteria and anoxic bacteria release the nitrate as nitrogen gas. So therefore it just precipitates harmlessly out of the aquarium instead of staying in the aquarium, requiring water changes, lowering buffering capacity, and increasing the amount of nitrate you get in the aquarium. So what we do is put matrix into this next chamber. These noodles are another very popular form of filter material. They're purely nitrifying material, and I don't find them anywhere near as effective as matrix. Now this section is complete. We've got the wool on top, which creates a second pre-filter. It then travels through the Kamahata mesh. The green mesh is really just keeping the matrix in place. The water then travels down through the matrix, through a second part of Kamahata mesh, which is once again just keeping the matrix in place. It then passes underneath into what you could consider to be a second settling chamber. The water then comes up over the top, where we're going to place the heaters now, and then returns into the main sump. You've got to make sure you get a really reliable brand of heater, and before you put the heater into the aquarium, set it on 25 degrees. And remember that the heater is a thermostat, it is not a thermometer. You must have a separate thermometer which is away from the heater to determine the actual temperature of the heater. Because this is going on a relatively large aquarium, we've chosen to use 2 heaters. Most of these heaters can be safely submerged, but it's best to have just the end of it out of the water. The last component of this filter is the sump. The larger the sump and the more water volume this sump holds, the better off you are for the aquarium, because it will add extra literage to the aquarium. Therefore your dispersal rates of your nutrients in the aquarium will be better. So therefore, larger the sump, the more fish you can have in the aquarium. It's really important that you're happy with the position of the aquarium, because now we're going to fill it with gravel, decorations and water, and there's no way you'll be able to move it once it's completed. So now it's time to fill up the tank. You'll be surprised how long it takes to fill up a big aquarium like this one. There's all different types of aquarium tubes on the market. There's Biolux tubes, which really enhance the colour of the fish. There's high intensity full spectrum tubes, which really illuminate the whole aquarium. There's actinic tubes that give the blue effect. Now, as far as the cichlids are concerned, they're not worried which lighting you choose. It's really just your preference. So it's worth looking at the different types of tubes available and experiment particularly on your aquarium and see which ones you like the look of and which ones bring up the colour of your fish. If your aquarium is about 18 inches high, you will typically use a single fluorescent row over the aquarium. If the aquarium is up to 2 foot high, you would generally use a minimum of 2 rows over the top of the aquarium. It's not at all important how much light you use or what light you use with the cichlids. It's really just to create the effect that you're after. Okay, now you've got your hood on your aquarium and you've finished your initial setup. You've got plenty of aeration, your filtration's going, you've got your heaters on and you're waiting for them to get up to 25 degrees on your thermometer. Next is to check the pH and make sure the pH is adequate for your fish. Things like African cichlids like the pH alkaline, and we've got a little bit of coral sand through the bottom which will make the pH alkaline. Most tap waters tend to be alkaline as well, and these white rocks make the water alkaline. We tend to encourage at least a double dose of water ager to make sure there's no chlorine in the water, so your temperature's right, your pH is right. We've added plenty of water ager. Also, a lot of fish like cichlids like a little bit of salt in the water. Tend to use about 1 teaspoon per 5 litres, and there's plenty of good brands available. Follow the recommendations, add some salt, then you're ready to get your fish.